I agree, but we're doing race science now? No, we're not. It's not controversial or problematic in any way to point out that there is a relationship between your thoughts and your brain, and your brain and your thoughts, and conservative thoughts are different from non-conservative thoughts, and they might either cause or betray a difference in the brain. There is an IQ difference on average between conservatives and non-conservatives. It doesn't have anything to do with race or pseudoscience. It's a measurable, factual part of reality, and I think it's important for us to point this out, okay? Listen, the difference between somebody like you, I don't know who you are watching this, but I'm going to guess you're fine, right? The difference between someone like you and somebody like Erica Kirk is not just one of opinion. There are fundamental differences. And conservatism rewards the kind of person that Erica Kirk is. Soulless grifters, people who have no morals or values, people who will shift into any position or form any outlook if it benefits them. These things are beneficial to political commentators in general, but I think there's way more of that on the right. So now IQ matters? Why are you acting as though I don't call people low IQ like 40 times a stream? What do you mean? Of course it does. IQ measures IQ. Isn't IQ an anime? Fuck, you're right. I got those mixed up. Conservative culture is also very psychosexual. Look, it's like I've said a million times before, okay? The brain is plastic. It's moldable. We are a product of our thoughts. To a large extent, what we think shapes our mind. There is a significant intelligence difference between a person who is educated and learns the processes by which you are rational and a person who is, say, feral. Like, say they were raised by wolves in the woods or whatever, you know, some monkey man Tarzan situation, you know. The brain isn't innate in both cases. There's not a preset intelligence that both brains develop into. There are differences. You know, you shape your brain. That's the whole point when you learn, right? In the same way that a dictionary that is filled out is more comprehensive and provides more information. A brain that is filled out has more information to pull from, to synthesize information from. Conservatism is just intellectually and emotionally vacuous. And as a consequence, people who believe in it they're not doing okay. I don't know what to tell you. It's both playing into and rewarding really, really, really bad emotional and intellectual impulses that if you follow a pattern, like if you continue with this, it either reveals stuff about your brain, not good stuff, or it shapes your brain. None of this is even remotely controversial. But I find it important to come back to it because what I find over and over and over again, right? People ask themselves, or they ask me, how can anybody be like this? What possible state of mind could lead a person to be like this? And it's important that you understand that intelligence and rationality and empathy and emotional honesty and everything else that makes a person good or thoughtful, all of these are processes. They are muscles that you have to work. It takes day in, day out effort. And a lot of the times, you're not even consciously aware of it. It's just something that you engage in. It's one of the reasons why people who live in multicultural cities are on average much less racist than people who live in the sticks. It's not necessarily that they've been educated to be less racist. It's that their day-to-day experiences have caused them to, on some level, right, internalize the fact that we're all humans and we can work together. You know, they're exercising that muscle. Every time if you live in Manhattan, you go outside and you engage with this broad multicultural spectrum of life that exists in New York City, you are exercising muscles. Every time your ideology challenges you to try to find an answer to a question, you are working muscles. How often do you think conservatives really work over their worldview? How often do you think the average Republican sits down and thinks, what is the answer to this? Why are people acting this way? They never do. Their ideology rewards instant, simple, intrinsic answers. So they don't work those muscles. And as a consequence, their brains rot and they become objectively, measurably, like with a brain scan, worse than us. On average, obviously. This is all like a very, averages, you take thousands of people and so on. But yeah, it's true. So, it's important to keep that in mind. Keep in mind that not being a conservative doesn't mean that you're immune to these things, right? It's possible to be really reflexive in that way while being on the left. I just think it's harder. I think that we tend to challenge people more, How does this apply to non-humans, though? Oh, easily. I guarantee you that you could get measurable differences in intelligence between cats and dogs who had been raised in different environments. Like cats and dogs that have been raised in environments that encourage lots of critical thinking or like social engagement would probably be a lot more capable of, you know, whatever like the cat or dog version of an IQ test would be. They would do better, you know? That's the whole point of the brain, man. We develop new cognitive pathways. It's a miracle of life. It's genuinely a miracle of life. It's very, very cool. I will say this though, and I think that recognizing this in yourself is like an important component of understanding the psychosexuality of so many people's political positions. When you are in a bad mood, I think you are more likely to be right wing, because I think that right wing political thoughts feed off of and play into negative emotions like fear, paranoia, disgust, and so on. I think that if you're in a bad mood, you're more like, if you're in a bad mood, you're more likely to see people who live an alternative lifestyle and go like, that's not good, or like, you know, grow up or whatever. But if you're in a good mood, you're like, yay, you know, love is love or whatever. I don't mean like gay people, because everyone watching me is probably fine with gay people. I guess I mean more like if you see a T for T couple and one of them has a collar with a leash on and you're at the corner store. I don't know. Like if you're in a bad mood, you're like, get a job. And then if you're in a good mood, you're like, I'm so happy I can live in a time and place where people feel comfortable. You know what I mean? I'm being real. Like I'm being real. It's the negativity is oddly specific. I live in Seattle. Do you feel sympathy for right-wingers who are deeply mentally ill? I mean, I guess, but I feel more sympathy for the people who are hurt by their illness. Yeah, you have to kill the chud in your brain. Can you recommend any books or anything about the psychosexuality of right-wingers? Yeah, Disco Elysium. No, for real, I don't know. I know people have written on it. I would like to believe, and you will, I hope, pardon me my conceitedness, I would like to believe that of people who talk about politics online, I have always been ahead of the curve on talking about the psychosocial and psychosexual elements of conservative thought. I think that while a lot of other people are on the, not, I shouldn't say surface level, because they're talking about a lot of like really interesting stuff that I can't touch on, right? Like some of the stuff that folding ideas Dan has talked about is like transformative, right? Like it's not like I don't learn from others, but I think specifically on some elements on the psychosexual, I think that it's very important and underexplored. It's very, very, very important. You know, for me, one of the most telling indicators of this were it was after the murder of Renee Good, where a bunch of right-wingers online essentially said, I'm glad she was killed because she looks like my bitch mom or my bitch fourth grade teacher, you know? Like, it's a bunch of them essentially just said that, and they all agreed with it. They were all fine. Like, to them, that was like a good argument. They were like, you're right, she does look like my fucking mom or my elementary school teacher, you know? Do you think the psychosexual childhood bullshit is where their overwhelming pedophilia comes from, or is it just evil aura? I've said this before, but like, I know this sounds absolutely insane. I think a lot of them are vice signaling about the pedophilia. I think that a lot of them have relatively normal sexual interests and paraphilias, and that for them, a lot of them, the obsessive like pedo posting is more about demonstrating how disgusted they are by educated women and like their desire to be dominant over a woman. Like so much so, like they're basically saying, I am so intolerant of grown-up women and their bullshit that like they'll pretend to be a pedophile. They'll pedo post over it, you know? I think a lot of them do that, which is insane, absolutely insane. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's just rage bait then? No, not necessarily. Like, why does Nick Fuentes every once in a while say stuff like that? You know? I do not think, pardon me if it seems like I'm giving the man too much credit. I just don't think Nick Fuentes wants to have a female partner who he abuses. I don't think that he does. I don't think that he does. Whatever his interests are, I don't think they're that. But he has to like vice signal where he's like, oh, 16-year-old trad wife, oh, Epstein was based, oh, it's not even a problem because they were like just barely illegal or whatever. Why does he do that? I think that the performative element there is, look at how deviant we are. We're so put up with women. We're so done with women. We're so over their shit that, like, this is what we're saying. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense? I don't know. Vice signaling does explain a lot. Just weird.